Smoke Some Podcast. It's the Visionary Mind, episode 34. We back with another one. We were one of my favorite people off of Instagram. I've had a chance to have different conversations with them. We have a business owner. We have a cultivator. We have a man of all kind. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ken. Thanks for having me here today.
Man, no problem. You're one of the pages that I really pay attention to on Instagram because you always have something insightful and something great to say. Let's just start there. Like, what about you, or what about in your background that made you such a positive and enlightful person?
Well, thank you very much, and I'm really glad to hear it. We do our best to what we call fight the craft weed revolution, because I and the people at Southland Farms really believe that getting access to clean, green, organic cannabis is everybody's right, and we should really do everything we can to make sure that that's available. And Michigan is such a great state for cannabis that we're here to celebrate it, and quite frankly, I try to bring a lot of energy to the Instagram and everything we do in the shop, because it's weed, right? And we should be happy we're working in this industry. There's a lot of it's not like we're going into the coal mine every day and working in the coal mine. So even on our tough days, it's still weed. One of the things that we have on the back door of the shop when you're walking in for the staff is this little sign that says "Smile, we're selling weed." Because for my life, almost 40 years, I was smoking weed and buying it, waiting in the parking lot, or going and waiting for people. A lot of bullshit, a lot of shame involved, a lot of difficulty just to get what I was looking for to help myself mentally and physically, right? And now that we have it legal, I want to make sure that everybody has access to it, and not just clean. Legal weed is great. Clean, organic is even better, and we want to make sure people have access to that too.
So, as someone that I'm gonna go back to something that you said, that that was in an era where weed wasn't accessible to now. Now being in an era where weed is so accessible, and weed is one of the mainstays of our economy. I mean, because in the pandemic, churches, all type of businesses were closed, but dispensaries were open. So just kind of like reflect on that, like being able, coming from your era where in the beginning it wasn't legal and you kind of had to like hide and could kind of not be yourself to point out where weed is everywhere. Absolutely.
I think we're living right now in the golden age of cannabis, right? Because it's legal in many states, and the quality, there's all levels of quality on the market, but you can go and get some of the best weed ever grown in the history of the planet right now, right? So it's really awesome. I'll tell you, when I remember real clearly, I started smoking cannabis. Well, I never called it cannabis back then, but I smoked weed in September of 1986 was when I first started doing that. And then in the fall of 1988, I started taking the train to New York, picking up not huge amounts of weed, but enough weed to pay for us to smoke weed for free, right? Which is, I think, how lots and lots of people were in the weed game. And I was lucky. I had one small arrest, but got out of college, got into the non-weed world, still smoked weed all the time. Right. But, had to keep that undercover, because in the 90s, the notion of legal cannabis outside of California for medical use was just a fantasy.
Yeah, no, really. It was not believable.
It was a fantasy. And so we had to keep it quiet. People would use it, to screw you over in the professional world too. Right. I had one colleague of mine who was trying to get ahead at work, and so went to the boss and said that I was a drug addict because I smoked weed, right? And this was like 1998, so it was 97, 98, so it was still, I could have been fired for smoking weed. Right. Instead, I had a boss who was focused on winning, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, it doesn't seem like it's affecting your work, so don't let it affect your work, and keep doing a good job, and keep it to yourself, basically. But now it's totally different, right? Yeah. And I think that is so wonderful, right? Because not only do people not have to, so many people smoke cannabis because they're looking to get some kind of relief, right? Physical relief from pains that they have, or mental relief. You know, a lot of people for mental relief, right? And it's instead during the dark days, people would feel shame that they were going to that, and they were trying to pump you full of pharmaceutical drugs. And so now it's different, and every day we want to make sure, we work to make sure that people know that, you know, there's options here, and there's places to come where you can get a friendly conversation, not trying to sell you the most expensive stuff, but trying to help you find the relief you're looking for, because this plant, in my view, is a gift from nature that for thousands of years was one of the main ingredients in the medicine man's bag, right? And then for 100 years, we've had the making it illegal mostly for business purposes, right? Competition from alcohol, competition from the powers that be that wanted to, not allow a continuing backlash after the end of alcohol prohibition. And so for 100 years, science was stopped. Everybody was told it was bad. But now people are starting to realize, holy cow, there's so many things that this plant can help you with.
Right.
And that's why one of the things I'm really passionate about is helping people grow the plant themselves. Because everybody in Michigan, thankfully, you know, under the Michigan law, you can grow 12 plants at your home, no problem. And we have started a home grow club at Southland Farms, where we give out the seeds for free, and then they can get online and do their Zoom with us once a month, and then they have videos that I send them and things like that. Because, you know, growing great weed takes work and attention.
Right.
But growing cannabis to be able to use as medicine, especially if you're looking to make topicals and other things for physical pain, it doesn't take very much. Anybody can do it.
Right.
Anybody who wants to in Michigan now could start, and before Christmas they would have balm and other things to be able to make pretty much guaranteed.
Right.
And so that's one of the things we really like to try to do is help people, you know, take away that stigma of the past, right?
Right.
And let people really embrace the magic that this plant has to offer.
Right. So going back to, you said a lot of different gems and a lot of different things I want to like kind of go back and kind of touch on. One of the ones was the growing club. How easy and accessible is for people to sign up for that growing club, and do you need to be per se in the Niles area to
No, you do not
participate?
Thanks for asking. You know, we're real proud of it. It's super easy to sign up for it. Right. You can either there's a Zoom link sign up on the website at southlandfarms.com that you can find. You can call the shop and get the information. You can send an email at info@southlandfarms.com. And you can come into the shop too, because most people needed seeds too, right? So we've given out over 450 seeds so far this year.
Okay.
We also have, I've got a whole lot of seeds popping at my house, and then a couple of at one of the head cultivator's house as well. So people are having problems germinating or whatever, they can come by and they can pick up these little baby plants from us. So anybody who wanted to join, you can join anytime, but I'd encourage people to sign up between now and May 22nd.
Okay. That's
when we're looking to get the plants in the ground outside in Michigan sometime around June 1.
I was going to say, let's kind of like dig into your background. Like, how were you raised? How were you grew up? What type of influences propelled you to where you are now?
So I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, and I went and I left there, and I went out to Washington, D.C. for college. That's where I first got into cannabis, and have really been into cannabis since the first time I smoked it. Mm-hmm. To be perfectly honest with you, one of the things I love about it is that a lot of people talk about the cannabis community. What I find is that the cannabis users are in every community, and they're the ones in each community that I want to spend time with.
Right.
And so that's one of the things as I've moved through life, I've really had the pleasure of being able to make friends and get to know people from a vast different viewpoints, different backgrounds, all united by the same thing, right? Their love of the herb. And so after I started my professional career with living down in Mississippi, working for Habitat for Humanity, and college, I spent a lot of time with folks smoking weed.
Okay.
When I got down to Mississippi, it was a totally different cultural experience, but I met one older guy in particular, Arthur Jones, and he and I used to, what we would talk about, we would nickel up for a dime bag, right? We'd each come up with $5, go out, and you'd get the dime bag.
What part of Mississippi?
This was in Clarksdale in the Delta.
Okay.
And so this was in the early 90s, 92, 93. And so he'd go buy the dime bag, and we'd get enough weed in that dime bag for 3 joints. One for him, one for me, and one for right now. And so I smoked a lot of weed with Arthur Nice, learned a lot about what was going on and the history of Mississippi and the Delta, and just a totally different perspective. Because he's a black guy, 25 years my elder, right? He'd seen a totally different world. And then as I moved, after that, I moved up and I got involved in politics and government in Illinois. I worked in the legislature in Illinois. I ran political campaigns for different races, from the attorney general of the state to the president of the county where Chicago's at. And then I represented different companies and interest groups as a lobbyist to try to affect the laws, right? And I did that for 25 years. I enjoyed it all the time, smoking and being a weed person. And as adult use started to move throughout the states, I decided that it was time for me to try my hand as a full-time person in weed. And so in 2021, myself, my cousin Kevin, and a friend of ours got licensed to open a micro business in Michigan, which is a unique license. And so we opened it 2.5 years ago.
Okay. So just to go back a little bit, what is life as a lobbyist like?
So I was real happy with the career that I had. I was ready to make a change just because I think it's good to not do the same thing forever.
Right.
Lobbying, I'll tell you, it was a great gig for me because I didn't have to work very hard back then. I got to play a lot of golf, and there was a lot of pressure. You had to deliver, but it was a good way to make a living. Right. No complaints about it. I just thought that I had turned 50, and it was time to try my hand at something new.
Something else,
yeah.
So, how was cannabis viewed from the individuals of the law? Like, I would it's like I know how you feel about cannabis. I know that you were a consumer, but the everyday lawmaker or lobbyist, like, how do they feel about cannabis compared to yourself?
I would say it's been an evolution.
Right.
That there was always weed smokers.
Right.
I've never been in any situation where there haven't been other weed smokers, right? But it was very much until probably the second Obama term, maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Totally under wraps. And then as medical started coming out, you need an ashtray or something?
No, I was gonna pass it.
Oh, I'll smoke this one.
Okay.
I got the flavor crystal. So as the laws started, as society changed, the people down in the government, they reflect that societal change.
Yeah.
So it's become much more open-minded. I think both in Illinois and in Michigan.
Right.
The big difference is, like, how do the states decide they're going to set up the regulatory environment, right? Mm-hmm. Because in most large states, they have what's called a limited license environment, meaning that only a few companies grow all the weed. So like in Illinois, basically 13 companies grow almost all the weed. Michigan took a different approach, and Illinois is similar to other states like Florida and New Jersey and a lot of the larger states. The California is a totally unique animal unto itself, and then places like Colorado, Oregon, Michigan allowed for more licenses and the local communities to decide whether or not they wanted to have them in the community.
Okay.
So, yeah, Michigan's been really good because it gives you opportunity to compete.
Right. So that was kind of like my next question. Like, seeing that you are a proud and contributing native of Illinois, was it a difficult decision to not set up a business there versus Michigan?
I will tell you that I often am driving to the shop in the morning and I'm thinking, why did I wait so long to come here? Because it's so nice. I live in Southwest Michigan, the beautiful vineyards and the St. Joe River and the lake, and it's great. So I don't have any regrets at all. I think it's sad that Illinois has a regulatory system that doesn't allow people the opportunity to do this there, right? But for me personally, I know coming here and doing this, my cousin had moved up a few years earlier. Our original partner, Chris, had been here 10 years before that as an original caregiver. And so I think it's been really great.
Right.
Really great.
So how do you feel about the Illinois cannabis scene and the Michigan cannabis scene?
I think that Michigan, let's take a look at the numbers, right? The numbers, I think, tell the story as well as anything. Illinois' got 1.5 million more people than Michigan does, but Michigan sells twice as much cannabis as Illinois does. We got a $3 billion plus market. Mm-hmm. They're about $1.5 billion market. And
that's still a lot of money, but
yes,
like, that big of a difference is like mind-boggling.
And to me, the difference is twofold, right? The difference is that the license structure that we just talked about, and also the quality. There's no incentive for quality and innovation when you have such few licenses.
Right.
So here in Michigan, because there's such competition, we're seeing innovation, and we're seeing quality. We see a lot of the same chemically grown, radiated cannabis that you see in Illinois, same style here, but that's not the only stuff you see in the shops here.
Right.
And in these limited license states, that's pretty much all you see in those shops. One of the things that excites me so much about Michigan are the smaller companies, especially the young dudes and gals who are getting into it, and they've opened one Class B grower, and now they're making rosin, and we're becoming to rosin what the Kentucky hub is to bourbon, right? And exactly. Yeah. And not just because we got a lot of choice, but because we got real quality in the game too, right? And so it's I think of all the markets that I could be participating in cannabis, Michigan I think is for me the best one. It's really tough because there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of people competing who believe that the path to success is just a race to the lowest price. Right. Make everything a common denominator at the very lowest price. But we all know that not all potheads are looking for the cheapest pot.
Not at all.
Right? For most of my life, I've always been looking for the best weed.
Right.
How about you?
I've always looked for the best weed.
Right.
Even when I didn't know I wasn't smoking the best weed, I still wanted the best weed. Like it's just, you know good weed, you know the difference.
Absolutely.
You know the difference. And know now with dispensaries where they kind of like some dispensaries, you can kind of tell where it's like, oh, this is modified or this is a little dry. You kind of sprayed a little something on there.
Let me tell you, I started smoking weed with the brickweed. I don't know if you guys, all your followers, know what brickweed is, right?
Oh, yeah, but we definitely
so that was stems and seed and everything smooshed together, right? And I didn't even know what buds looked like in 1986, right? But I remember, like, by 1989, I got my first taste of like the California hydro. Some of the frat brothers lived out in L.A. and they brought it back, and it was like, holy shit! Like, what a difference, right? What a difference! And now, flash forward to today, and we've got so many great options. And in Michigan, I think more than almost any other state, consumers can go to a legal shop with no hassle and buy some really killer weed for, $75 a quarter. And I was paying that much for a quarter 20, 30 years ago, right?
Wow,
It's like
yeah. Times have changed.
Times have changed.
Some things still kind of remain the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we love to, one of the things, because I think the Michigan market is so great, one of the things that I really encourage folks to do when they're looking to get weed is to make sure that you smell it, right? Because the visual game, all the growers have caught on to the bud porn, right? And especially because of what has been put out there, not so much the back in the old day High Time magazine type photos, but all the social media photos, so many of them, they're showing, machine bud, trimmed bud, right? Packed up with synthetic hormones to get those buds fat and to get them hard. And they glisten in the picture, right?
Yeah, they look nice.
And so but that's only one hallmark of quality weed, right? Weed is about the appearance, like we're talking about, but it's also about the aroma.
Right.
It's about the flavor, and most importantly, it's about the effect. What's it make you feel like when you smoke it? Right? And that's why when we get folks in to the shop, we like to make sure that they get a whiff of the weeds, because usually those smells trigger in the consumer the kind of weed that they like.
Right.
And some people just love that. Let me show you. Some people just love that gassy, earthy, I like to call it that old school 1990s good weed from Michigan. Right? And so ours, like that, is this JFK, which is an in-house strain that we've got. And you get that?
Yeah.
Right? But now, that smell compared to this, and this one has lots and lots of myrcene in it, which is the terpene that gets people to be chill in the couch, right? This one here,
it's a different smell.
totally different, right?
Smell,
totally different, and it is this is the Mac, totally packed with limonene, which is going to be your most standard uplifting sativa terpene.
Right.
And like you can almost, as you start to smell more weeds and start to connect the smell to what the terpene profile is, you can start to know yourself, oh, that weed's gonna be a good weed for me to smoke when I'm going for a long car ride. Or this one's going to be good weed to smoke in the morning, or this is going to be something good to smoke before I go see this movie. Right? And it's really fun as we learn more about that to see the customers learning more about that too, right? Because science, just like everything else we talked about, for 100 years there was a ban on it. There's total ban on science, right?
Yeah.
So like we didn't know what terpenes did to the weed. We didn't know what the cannabinoids were. We didn't know what our endocannabinoid system
we didn't even
was.
Think about that. It just was, does this make me feel good? Is it good or is it not?
Yeah. For the first half of my weed smoking life, I just got weed.
Right.
And then starting like in the mid 2000s, I got weed in a bag and it had an arrow pointing up or down. And then I finally figured that out a few years later. I could say, okay, that's sativa or that's indica. And now it's like, oh, we're talking about which terpene and what minor cannabinoids are in the weed so that people can get what they're really looking for. And that's, again, why I talk about it's the golden age.
Right.
And not only is it golden age because people can get quality and people can walk in the shop and get a vape or get an edible or what.
Yeah.
But it's also the golden age because you're still paying what you were paying 40 years ago.
Right.
For a much better product now.
Much better product.
It'd be like, I wish we could buy an F-150 for $10,000.
Nah, not unless it's used.
Yeah, right.
So there's always like a great debate within like the Michigan cannabis scene. It's the caregivers versus dispensaries. Where do you lie as far as that debate? Like,
we come down on the view of we're for weed, right? And we try to treat everybody with love and respect.
Right.
I appreciate what the caregivers are about. I think that I'm a big advocate, and people want to continue to do that. We're all for it. I'm also an advocate for legal weed because a lot of people, especially younger folks, don't realize what it used to be like to have to go get weed.
Right.
And I see every day in my shop the amount of people who are using it to battle serious medical issues. Right? And I used to maybe downplay that some, but I see it every day now, right?
Right.
And they need, the notion of, well, just get a caregiver and you can get it. Well, it's just so much easier and more transparent when you can just go to the store and buy it. So I think the balance there is great. What I really think is that even in Michigan, but we've got such a complicated regulatory framework.
Right.
I would like to see us say to the caregivers to be able to take their product to farmers markets, or for me to be able to host, and microbusiness to be able to host farmers markets in our parking lot, right?
Right.
But I also think the caregivers, if they're going to sell to the public, and I'm not talking about if you're going to raise the plants to give to the 6 patients you're raising for, but if you're going to sell to the public, I think you should have your cannabis tested and collect the taxes like everybody else does if you're going to be at a farmer's market. But I think that we should have them, and I think that the caregivers should be able to participate in that, right? And because what I don't want to see and what seems to be happening is that the American cannabis industry is moving towards trying to repeat the American tobacco industry.
Right.
Or American liquor too, but
the other markets that we are more used to now versus cannabis.
Correct. And you may not recall this, but there was in the 1990s, there's a famous time with the tobacco industry where the tobacco industry claimed that they didn't know that nicotine was addictive. And the 7 CEOs of the 7 big tobacco companies all stood in front of Congress, swore together that they didn't know that nicotine was addictive. And then all the reports going back literally to the 1950s, internal report after internal report in every one of these tobacco companies that they all knew. That's why they ended up having to pay billions in the settlement, right? So I see that same type of happening in cannabis, and I don't think consolidation is all bad. I actually think that having some larger players who are driving the industry to get the changes we need related to banking, related to people being able to pay with their credit card, where people don't get busted if they buy it legally and they drive through a state where it's illegal.
Yeah.
All those things. We need the big companies to spend the money to make those changes. And well, I am a organic craft weed guy. When I go to the tailgate, I drink Coors Light, so there's nothing wrong with having macro beer, and there's nothing wrong with having macro weed.
Right.
A lot of people want to just buy some cheap weed and go out and roll giant joints, and God bless them, right? But like what's happening is these big companies who are looking to consolidate, they don't want the bottom to exist, right? Let the grassroots happen. Let the home growers happen. Let the small guys like me who are innovating and bringing things to the market, organic to the market that they don't want to bring to the market, let that ecosystem exist along with the big ones. It's like...
So why do you feel like those bigger corporations don't want those particular smaller entities to exist?
Well, I don't think that they're any different than any other industry in 2024. Right. People want it all, because if you don't have it all, you might not be able to have that second private jet, right? Like, when did it, in America now, it seems like it's not good enough to have a successful business that gives you and your family and your investors and all that fair profits and a good life, right? You're only winning if you've beaten everybody else and you've got it all, right? And it's like, and we see that in industry after industry after industry, and we're seeing that in cannabis too. But I'll tell you, in the consumer industries where where the people are buying on quality products, whether it be whiskey or beer or cigars or wine or handbags or shoes.
Yeah.
You know, people, the big guys can make the good stuff too.
Right.
But the people know the difference between fake and authentic, right?
Right.
It's like the difference between drinking a Bell's or a Founders or drinking a Shock Top or a Killian's Red, right? Well, the big guys made those to try to get into the market, and the people said, we're not going to drink that. We want the real stuff.
Right.
And that's going to happen in cannabis too. That's why it's so critical that we keep up the drumbeat. We fight the craft weed revolution. Not to say that the big industry shouldn't exist, not to say that there shouldn't be, 50 joint for $50 bags if people want to go get them down the street. I'm all for it, but there ought to be a choice so that people can go get the good stuff too, right? And that the growers who want to grow with love and care, but I'm not disparaging how the big guys grow,
right?
But the economics of it, that are you doing everything by hand? Are you really trying to make it the very finest expression you can, right? Well, it doesn't make sense for everybody in the industry to operate that way, right. But it doesn't make sense to have an industry where you can't let some people go that because people want that,
right?
Yeah. If you just got drafted in the NBA, what kind of weed do you want to smoke?
The best.
Right?
The best. No, I get it. You gotta smoke the best.
Can I borrow that lighter from you?
Yeah, of course. What are like some changes in the Michigan cannabis scene that you would like to see, like just from whether there's legislation like your previous or even now as a business owner, what different changes?
So I'm working with the other micro businesses now. We're working together as a team, and we've got some great leadership from some others. So Michigan, like I mentioned, has a different structure. Mm-hmm. One of the things they did, and the biggest reason they have a different structure is because the politicians didn't legalize cannabis in Michigan. Most states, the politicians legalize cannabis. Here, the people did it, and so they put some requirements into the language of the ballot that said there has to be small players in the market. There has to be the existence of the caregivers and a pathway for caregivers to get into the adult use market, and that's where the micro businesses came about, right? And the micro businesses were, you could grow 150 plants, you can process them, make hash, make whatever you want, and you could have a retail shop. But then the price, when adult use came in Michigan, the price of the ounce of cannabis dropped from $400 to $82 in the course of the first couple of years, right? Okay. And so it was very, very, very difficult for the micro businesses to stay open with just 150 plants and the price down so low. In fact, I started talking to a bunch of micro business owners in January 2023, and in 1 year, 5 of the 9 went out of business. And so what happened was Michigan in the last, they create rules to regulate the industry. Yeah. The last set of rules created a micro business A category. And what that did was, which was a real lifesaver to us, was it said, okay, you can grow 300 plants now. You can no longer process. So we were making Temple balls and hash, and gummies. We gave that up. But instead, we can carry other people's products. And so now in our shop, we have a combination of only our flower and pre-rolls with the organic cannabis in it. But we carry 710 Labs and Peaches and Known and Cushmasters and all the best rosins we can get, right? And we carry wild gummies and band gummies and different gummies. Wild is our premium line that we carry, and we do that with the topicals and so being able to sell other people's products has really helped us. So what the micro businesses now are looking for from the state, because the state is in the process of updating the rules again, and they have had the rules set out for comment for about a year. Okay. There's supposed to be a final draft coming out in June, and then action in the government. So that final draft, they can make tweaks of it, but likely the change will be by the end of the year. And the main thing that micro businesses are looking for is to let us sell our product to the wholesale market. What I mean by that is right now, all the weed I grow, I can only sell at my boutique in Niles, Michigan.
Okay.
But a lot of people want the organic weed all over Michigan, and we're saying let us take our organic, because we get it tested the exact same way as everybody else in the state.
Right.
Let us have our weed and sell it to the wholesale market, so that it's not just in our shops where you can buy the micro grown cannabis. And the other thing that we're looking for the state to do is to allow the micro business A's, if they choose, to make their own extracts to process. Right? For us, we have come to the realization that, one, we have demand for our cannabis, so we don't have a lot of extra cannabis. Rosin takes a lot of weed to make good rosin, right? But we also know that there's dozens of world-class rosin makers here in Michigan. Definitely. And we can only be great at so many things, right?
Yeah.
I don't try to be great at everything. I try to make sure that we have a great customer experience, so that people come into the shop, they know it's different. Yeah. This is what I've been waiting for. And not just because I've been waiting to be able to have a place to go get good weed consistently, but also because I've been waiting for a place that's going to treat me good,
right,
and treat me with respect, and understands that the world of weed lovers is as diverse as the world, right? And so we got to bring them all in and treat everybody the same way.
Definitely. So what are some of the just from your perspective and what you have come across, what are some of the pros and cons of the day-to-day operations of running a facility?
I would say for us, the biggest cons, I'll start there, is that and this is true for all the cannabis businesses, we have all of the negatives and challenges that come from operating in a highly regulated industry, right? We get inspectors, we get secret investigators that show up unannounced.
Yeah.
We got high fees that we have to pay. We got all kinds of regulations. But what we don't get as a trade-off is all the benefits of the American free enterprise system, meaning that we don't have, we can't take credit cards. If we were any other business, the credit card processor would give us credit for the inventory we're buying, right? Instead, I got to buy all the inventory COD, right? So if somebody's bringing me $5,000 worth of rosin, I got to write them a check for $5,000 before I sell one jar of it. And that is, to me, the biggest challenge, not being able to get the benefit of the free enterprise system while we are paying all of the charges for this regulated market. And I'm not against paying the charges, right? I'm not against the regulations. I certainly am a big believer that the cannabis needs to be tested and people need to be able to know that it's clean that they're getting.
Right.
So that's been the best part about it, I would say, is all the rest. Mm-hmm. So even though we're small, we're able to do the whole deal, growing it, drying it, curing it, making joints, selling it to the public. And so learning that whole process and being able to see the customers react to when they smell the weed and see the weed, or our customer we get all kinds. We certainly get younger folks who are looking for premium rosin, search it out. But we do more Gen X and baby boomers than we do Gen Zs.
Wow.
Right? And so it's really cool to see the reaction that so many people have, because they've been waiting for this.
Right.
They've been waiting for it, right? And now that it's legal, it gives people freedom to try it. A lot of people were afraid to try it. They smoked it in college. They smoked it before they had kids or whatever. But then they got into the life, right? And into responsibilities that they didn't want to add the risk of cannabis to screwing that up.
Yeah.
Now they don't have to worry about it, which is awesome.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome, yeah. So, how hands on are you on on the day to day? Like, are you like picking every strand? Are you into the process of like growing, or
We are fortunate now. We have a young guy named Tristan Clark, who's our head cultivator.
okay?
He's got a horticulture degree from Clemson. Clemson's got the biggest hemp growing research program in the country.
Wow.
So this kid went to college to grow weed, right? And he really loves it. In terms of the decision making day to day in what we're going to do, I really only get involved if there's some kind of problem, challenge, whatever you want to call it, and a decision has to be made. That it's better. I always find that on tougher decisions, it's better to have a group decide it,
right.
And so that's when I get involved on that. In terms of the strains, the shop opened a year and a half ago, and we have certain strains that people really like that they can't get anywhere else, and then we come out with new ones. We've pretty much settled on a routine for what rooms we grow what and where we're going to have new stuff. I would say I am significantly involved in the acquisition and selection initially of the genetics.
Okay.
And I'm usually the one who is like, we're not going to grow it again. I might give up on it quicker than because it grew nicely, it smelled good, it looked good, but in modern cannabis, it's got to test good too.
Yeah,
if it doesn't test good, it's not going to Notre Dame, right? Or University of Michigan. You got to pass the test to get to the big house. And so, in terms of the rest of it in product development, that's something I really like to do. I have a background in communications, so the PR and the communications. My partner Jennifer, she's got a regular full-time business she runs herself, but she does our social media for us. Not the content, obviously. And then we have a great team of. I got a young person who's our purchasing manager now. I gave that up because she's just like on Reddit all the time, looking for the best new rosins or a great deal.
And that's a great attribute to have too. Somebody that's going to go innovate and think outside of the box to better the business,
and likes it and tries the stuff too, right? So what I find, because a lot of the at least down where we're at in Niles, a lot of our rosin customers are driving from Indianapolis or Chicago or wherever they might be coming from, right? So nobody who drives an hour and a half is buying 1 gram of rosin, right?
Not at all.
And so having the people on the team who are users themselves who can walk through all the different ones we have, why they look different, what the different styles are, and then the smells, right? Because people buy rosin based on aroma a lot of times. And what we really pride ourselves in trying to offer consumers the best choice of rosin down in that little corner of the state. Because I always view it as, we have now in Southwest Michigan, I don't know if you guys have ever been down. You should come down this summer because the superstores have arrived in New Buffalo. You've got Herb and King of Buds, and there's a thing, and I don't want to leave others out, but there's 6 or 8 that are open now. Herb took over an entire hotel at Exit 1. When you're coming on I-94 from Indiana into Michigan, Exit 1, it's an entire hotel that they take over. Wow. This is like, they're anticipating that there'll be more cannabis sold in New Buffalo Township than anywhere else in the Midwest, and there will be few counties in even California that are selling more weed than what they're selling there. Damn. It is just like, and so we want to just have a presence there and say, if you're looking for something a little bit better, let's be honest. There's a reason why fruits and vegetables, organic fruits and vegetables, cost a little more, right? Because they cost a little more to grow. But there's a reason why people choose them, because they taste better, right? It's the same as in cannabis in a lot of ways, right? There's nothing wrong with that tomato you get on your Wendy's hamburger,
Right.
But oftentimes, it's white on the
Yeah.
inside. There's maybe a little bit of red right around the edge of the tomato.
Right.
That's like most of the cannabis you're buying at the shops these days. It's the same equivalent. They're growing it to maximize the yield and to get that tomato the right size so you can get one slice to cover the burger, right? And so people ought to think like, okay, I stopped at fast food. They put the tomato on my burger. It's fine. But you wouldn't eat that tomato as a tomato salad,
No,
right?
not.
And it's the same with cannabis.
Yes.
People, what I encourage folks to do is smoke lots of different weed.
Yeah.
You smoke lots of different weed and try to I know it's hard to pay attention about it after you smoked it because you're stoned, right? But just try to pay a little bit of attention to like when you're starting it. How's that feel? Like I sometimes when I'm doing it as a ganjier to assess the cannabis, I put 5 minutes on my stopwatch, and then so I after I start smoking, 5 minutes later, okay, what am I experiencing 5 minutes from now, right? And then I put 30 minutes on because those sort of give me the benchmarks as to what the experience is being like. And so we just you can see I'm excited about cannabis business in general, right? I think it's just so fantastic that we have a legal market. We can be here sitting, talking about it, sharing a passion that so many people share. But I also am passionate about making sure that access to the good stuff, especially for people who need to know it's organic for their medical conditions, and access to people being able to grow it at home so they can have it and not, even no matter what kind of economic issues they've got. Those are two of the passions I have. And I know that the world changes so fast, right? And so many people half my age already view the world the same way I do when it comes to cannabis, right? That inevitability is going to happen, but why wait, right? I don't want to let the inevitability of legalization happen while nobody's speaking up for what legalization ought to look like. And, it seems like it's either people think it ought to look like anybody can do anything they want anytime, or it's super dangerous and a few companies should be just like it's like they're growing nuclear weapons or something like that, right? I think it's got to be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
It's America. It's 2024. There's going to be giant companies consolidating because that's how America works now.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be only that.
Only that, yeah.
And that's where Michigan is doing it better than most.
Exactly.
Better than most.
A lot better than most.
Yeah.
Speak about like the location in the city of Niles, Michigan. I mean, it's to me, as far as like cannabis wise, it's in a beautiful spot because you're in an area where you're not that far from Indiana and you're not that far from Illinois. Just talk about that particular area. Why did you choose to pick that area and how that area has thrived since the cannabis exception?
Yeah. We chose to go there basically because my original partner, Chris, was living up in the Baroda Bridgman area as a caregiver for the last 12 years. And it was close to where we live. My mother still lives in Illinois, right over the border. But Berrien County and Niles, Michigan really is the center, not the center, but a burgeoning, huge cannabis industry, a region rather, in Michigan. And the location, so Niles is directly north of South Bend, Indiana. In fact, the strip, 11th Street is the main business drag in Niles, and we are on the northern end of that strip, and then within a mile of us is Levels Cannabis, Primitive Cannabis, Green Stem Cannabis, and Firefly Microbusiness.
Okay.
So we got 5 of them, all right there on the main street that takes you right to the Indiana Toll Road or in the downtown South Bend. You don't even have to make a turn, and you're in downtown South Bend in 9 miles, right? And in addition, there is Edwardsburg just to the east and Buchanan just to the west. Buchanan's got 5 more. So there's a lot of shopping, but the Indiana border, it's nothing new in Michigan, right? As cannabis rolls out, border towns have always done well because it's not like people in Indiana don't smoke cannabis and only people in Michigan smoke cannabis. It's only the policymakers and the regulators who act like folks don't use weed, right? And so Niles has really embraced cannabis. In addition to the 4 retail and the 2 micro businesses that open in Niles and Buchanan both have allowed for unlimited grow and processor licenses.
Okay.
In fact, Niles took an giant old factory for Simplicity Fabrics, which had closed down, and they've now repurposed it, and they've got multiple licensees all growing under the same roof to reuse that space, as well as a whole bunch of the buildings that are in their industrial park. So Niles has really got a strong commercial industry growing both on the cultivation, production side, as well as the retail. And we're seeing that throughout Berrien County. I mentioned to you that there's up to 30 shops that are going to be going into New Buffalo.
Right.
There's couple over in Three Oaks. Benton Harbor now has a active scene with 3 or 4 dispensaries as well as multiple grows in Benton Harbor. So Berrien County is really becoming central. What we're hoping is that Berrien County will start to embrace the benefits that the industry is bringing to the community. You know, each town and each county both get $56,000 a year for every retail or micro business that they have, right? So every year Niles gets paid on 6. Every year Berrien County gets paid on, we'll see, this year it's going to be well north of 20, and in the next couple of years it's probably going to be 40 or 50, right? So we're talking multiple millions of dollars every year they're getting, and we would like to see them take some of that money and support this industry, right? At least some billboards to remind people to shop in Berrien County. Exactly, because otherwise they're driving to Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids, which are other great weed towns, Muskegon. They're all great weed towns, right? But we got you don't have to drive into the center of Michigan to get a great weed experience anymore. And, it's also really one of my real long-term hopes is that I see outdoor cannabis as a supplement to small farmers throughout Michigan. Cannabis grows really great with other crops. You know, Michigan is the 2nd largest producer of fruits in the whole country.
I know that.
And down in southwest Michigan, we have designated verticulture areas, the same as they have in California. So those are recognized wine growing regions by the International Council, right? Those same climates can create unbelievable environments to grow outdoor cannabis, right? And right now, Michigan is allowing some outdoor cannabis, but it's mostly being grown at scale, or it's being grown like we do in the club, where somebody grows 12 plants in their backyard. And I see, like, one of my hopes is that we get to the point where small farmers, they're able to grow 200-300 plants interspersed with their regular crop, and then to supplement their cash at the end of the year, right? Because what we have to get away from is this worldview that this plant is so dangerous that it should only be grown under like video surveillance and armed guards. I mean, it's ridiculous that we're talking that way about a plant that just offers healing to humanity.
It's crazy. It's really crazy how, like I said, it shouldn't be like that. It should be like a free flowing environment. I mean, the more people can consume the cannabis from different walks of life, they should be able to, whether it's personally, business wise, should have the same fair advantages.
Absolutely, and now we're living in a time, right? So anybody who's wondering, is there some benefit that I can get? Is there something that can help me with my sore knee or the anxiety I'm getting when I'm trying to fall asleep or whatever it is? You can go in and there's lots and lots of good shops in Michigan, right? There's some bad ones too, obviously, and even in the bad ones, there's caring bud tenders working in there, right?
Yes,
because they get it. So many people get in the industry because they want to. The plant has helped them, and they want to share that with others,
other people,
right? And so, almost any shop in Michigan, you can go in and you can talk to somebody, and they're going to help you. Now, in some of the shops, probably not a good idea to go in at 6 o'clock on Friday night, right? Because they're busy then, and people. But go in on a Tuesday, or go in on a Sunday, and go in first thing when they open, and let people know that you have questions, because most people in those shops, they want to help folks out. They really do.
Right.
Yeah.
What makes your facility in Southland as a whole different than everybody else?
Well, the first thing that makes us different is that we grow the weed right there on the premises.
Okay.
And so a lot of days you can smell that when you walk into the shop. Yesterday we had a harvest, and the days of the harvest are just awesome because the aromas fill the whole place. Right. And so that's one thing. But I would say for the customer experience, beyond the aromas, our shop feels much more like a small boutique than it does an Apple store or a pharmacy or whatever the typical dispensary models are. We like to call it the Budtique.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And you like that?
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
That's actually a great play on words. It gets you away from like the standard like boutique kind of scenario.
And like we have an Italian crystal chandelier hanging in the middle of the shop, and we have the finishes that we use to create the feeling in there. We tried to make sure that people would know that it was different, that we were. The shopping experience would be a little different because the cannabis experience is going to be a little different. But what we really want to make sure is that everybody feels very, very welcome.
Valued.
So whether you're a 80-year-old burner who's been burning for 60 years and is coming in to buy 4 ounces of weed, or you're on your 21st birthday coming in for your first time, or it's a couple of daughters bringing their mom in who's having a hard time sleeping. We want to treat everybody give them the experience that they were really hoping to get.
That brand recognition where people know they want to get a high quality experience.
Yeah, and I like to say that we treat the partiers and the patients and the plants all with love, right? So whether you're a partier or a patient coming in looking for weed, we want to treat everybody with love and because there's so many choices, like I was just talking about, right? Just on my street, there's 5 choices, and we're never going to be the cheapest. We don't have the most expensive stuff either. We have fairly priced stuff that to the market, totally fair and reflective of the Michigan market, right? Not the Illinois market. But why do people choose to go back and become repeat customers? Because in the cannabis space, well more than half of your customers are daily users, right? So it's people who are going to be smoking cannabis or eating cannabis or drinking cannabis or whatever regularly, right? So in some states, like in Illinois now, I hear the whole game is only price because every shop's got the exact same stuff. Right. Well, we have different stuff, so that's one way to differentiate us, but we don't have totally different stuff. So wild gummies are carried in most shops in Michigan, right? But what we try to have is a different experience, because that experience, that if you like it, combined with going home and like your brother-in-law coming over and telling you, man, that's the best weed I ever smoked. Right. Those two things together make you want to keep coming back to the shop.
The shop, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, is Indiana legal?
No, Indiana doesn't even have medical marijuana legally, and according to most resources, it's likely that Indiana will be one of the very last states to legalize cannabis.
Why do you think so?
I think because they have a strong right wing in their Republican Party and it's a one party state, and the advocates haven't been successful in getting enough of those legislators to see the medicinal benefit for. Because I will tell you, we have a lot of people who come up from Indiana who are our customers. You know, we're lucky because of the way our cannabis smokes, that we have a lot of locals who come in and buy joints from us, or whatever they buy, because they like it. They don't have to wait very long. But a lot of our customers are from out of state, obviously, and so it's not like Indiana's not smoking weed.
Yeah, they definitely smoking.
We have one.
Definitely.
We have our one customer who's an 80-year-old woman, and she comes up from Indianapolis, and she maxes out, and her daughter maxes out every time they come.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, far as the going back to the situation with Indiana, like, do you really feel like being like, as far as when you were in politics, like, it really is like a Republican or Democrat thing to regulate or like have an opinion on cannabis? Because I'm pretty sure there are some people that are like true Republicans.
No, I don't think it's a totally partisan issue most places.
Okay.
I think in almost every state that passes it, it's because both parties agree to pass it. I just think that the Indiana has been traditionally a very conservative place, and the conservatives have such a stranglehold that the more open-minded to it on the Republican side haven't been able to move the issue. It usually takes something like one of the decision makers,
Right.
the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House. In states like that, it usually takes a personal issue.
Right.
Their sister got diagnosed with something
Right.
and then found great relief from cannabis, and then all of a sudden they're a believer in the medical use of cannabis, right? And we haven't seen anything like that yet in Indiana. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, the Democrats are great for weed and the Republicans are terrible for weed, because I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. But like, do you really feel like that is something personal? Because I mean, I feel like I've never been a lawmaker, so that's why I'm asking you the question and frame it like this. Like, why would a lawmaker look at it from a personal standpoint, where if it makes money and it can boost our state economy, why is that not a no-brainer versus a personal opinion?
Because people just they internalize things so much. So many people make their decisions based on their own personal viewpoint and history, right? And so a lot of these people, especially if they're my age, if they're in their 50s or their 60s as leaders in the government, they were raised at a time when Nancy Reagan had the ads on, just say no, this is your brain on drugs, with the eggs in the frying pan, and have been in that one way of thinking for so long. How so many of the anti-weed people stereotype people who use cannabis into one category, like we're all like Cheech and Chong, right? and so I think that's a big part of it.
Right.
You know, that stigma that we're not feeling, that stigma still exists. People are getting arrested today in Indiana for doing what we're doing right now, right?
Wow.
That's I will say that too about Michigan. One of the other things I really love about Michigan is, Michigan stopped arresting people for weed.
Yeah.
In all of 2022, I think there was less than 300 people arrested for weed in Michigan. Even though Illinois legalized weed, there's over 18,000 people in 2022 arrested for weed in Illinois.
Right.
Think about that. And that's because we allow for the home grow. And we do not, in Michigan, the police are no longer using the smell of cannabis to just fuck with young dudes.
Well, I can't say that
as much. Well, the numbers are showing
I can't say that, because in Detroit, in the southeastern part of the state, this is definitely still a thing. This is definitely and they even limit what you can have. Like, you can only have like an ounce.
Would you say it's better than it was though?
Nah, because
really,
it's 50-50. I could play devil's advocate and kind of vouch for both, but I could say with the emergence of dispensaries they're still profiling, they're still looking, and still trying to figure out what is the quantity of what people are getting. Because some people go to the dispensary, like, you know what, I'm only gonna get a gummy, I'm only gonna get a cart, I'm gonna get rosin. Some people will be like, hey, I want an eighth. Some people go in there and say, I want to buy the whole store.
Yes, they do.
You got your different variety as a customer. So my experience is they still will, like, if they smell cannabis, they still will kind of mess with you and kind of gauge that to see how much cannabis do you have on person.
I'm not doubting that. I will say, though, that the numbers are showing that the reduction in the number of people being arrested in Michigan is super. I mean, way compared 2018 to 2022,
right.
The numbers are way down.
But I feel like those numbers will reflect the people who are growing in the legal amount of plants that you have.
Probably. And maybe they just arrest them for something else.
Right. With addition to cannabis.
Right. They don't write up the cannabis because they write up something else.
Right. Like somebody might have a firearm on them.
Yeah.
And then have cannabis, and they be like, well, can't have firearm and cannabis on you, so they X one out to get the other. Which I still think is not really fair. Like, it should be some legality where they should up the limit of what you're allowed to have on person. Because some people are, like, what I like to call Olympic smokers, chain smokers who can roll 20 blunts and it'll be an ounce and they can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I just feel like, just on the legal side, like, I feel like they should look at, obviously, you got some people who, like I said, I could play devil's advocate. You got people who smoke and drive. You might be discombobulated. We don't want to, like, have cannabis as seen like how we look at drunk drivers. So I understand them preventing a law like that, but, like, if somebody got like an ounce and they smell like weed but they're not actively smoking, I think they should just kind of, like, leave it alone to a certain.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think they should leave it alone.
I agree with you. I've been a weed smoker, like I said, for almost 40 years, right? And it's like, I can't tell you how many times I saw the cops in my rearview mirrors, and it, like, ruins my day. And I'm not. I mean, obviously, if you're African American, you have a lot more intense than that.
Yeah.
And I'm totally. That's why every step we make to removing the stigma and bringing the cannabis out into the light and making it fully legal for everyone, everywhere, is so important.
Right. So you guys have been open about like a year and a half?
Yeah, we opened the shop in October 2022.
Okay. So you guys are approaching on 2 years. Like, what do you see as far as y'all growth going forward? Like, what do you see you guys within the next couple of years? Because, like we have both stated throughout this, podcast, that Michigan cannabis is growing, and it's growing very fast.
So our goal is to take our pre-rolls, our packs of smokes, and our ground flower packs, and try to be selling those throughout Michigan by this time next year.
Okay.
That's our real, we had to stabilize. We had to make sure that we got our growing methods down where we could pass the tests all the time and all that customers wanted what we're selling. Now we're seeing that customers definitely want what we're selling.
Right.
And so our goal is to try to bring that out because, there's very few organic brands on the market. There's some organic growers who have shops where they sell their product, and there's a couple of organic brands, but very few. So that's what our goal is, to get our products on the shelves throughout Michigan.
Definitely. What are some of the, like, not strategies, but, like, what are some of the things that what people can see that will contribute to your growth, like, as far as, like,
so we're really trying to now that we have our processes in a much more stable place, we're really trying to raise awareness to what we're doing, what micro businesses are doing, and what organic cannabis is about. Right? What we're doing, what organic cannabis is about, they go together. And, we need, in order for us to grow like we want to, we need more people to smoke our weed. Right? That's first thing, because when people smoke it, they taste the difference, they like the difference. And then we are going to just try to, as we raise awareness and as people say, oh, I want to have an organic choice, we want to be there for them at the and so that means working with retailers to get our products onto their shelves.
Got you.
Right now, that's why we're working so hard with the CRA and with the other micro businesses, because we need the rule changes in order for us to do that.
Absolutely.
And if Michigan really does want the small folks and the caregiver tradition to exist in the adult use market, then they need to allow the micro businesses to sell into the commercial market. Because, think about, I'm lucky, I'm on the border. So I have these additional market, right? But, and if you're in a large city, you might be able to make it as a micro business because there's a bigger customer base, right? But where these micro businesses could really be awesome are in all these lake towns and communities that are busy 5 months a year but are not busy the other times. And what do the people who live there do, right? And it's so if you were busy, if you were in a lake town and you were a micro business where you had a lot of people 5 months a year, but you were able to sell your product into the dispensaries in the communities where those people live 12 months a year, Detroit or Grand Rapids or whatever, then you could see a proliferation of these micro businesses the same way there's been a proliferation of microbreweries, right? So just as Michigan has created this incredible industry of microbreweries and distilleries and local wineries, they could add micro cannabis businesses into that with just a little bit of changing of the rules. And to me, it's pretty obvious, and there's proof of concept going on all the time, that Michiganders want that. Because Michiganders, because of the fact that you could grow weed pretty much without getting in trouble for the last decade and a half, they understand quality in the cannabis market more so than most places do. And we've got just this incredible market, and so creating a small piece so that there's local, fresh, organic available in communities throughout Michigan, throughout the country, throughout the world. That's what the craft weed revolution is about. It's about making sure that people have local, fresh, organic cannabis, because to me, that's the best medicine that you can get. We cure our weed, obviously, but we do not put a long duration cure on it, because our weed doesn't need to be stabilized for 6 months because people are moving on it, right? And people, it's amazing how many times a day people come in and they say, well, what's the freshest? And people want that, yet the industry is set up to keep people from having that. And we're trying to change that.
Why do you feel like people try to prevent that? Like,
I think that when it's a few large players, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think most of the decision makers in commercial cannabis are not weed lovers. They're green lovers. They love business, right? And maybe they smoked a little bit of weed, or they'll have a gummy on the weekend, but they're not weed men and women.
They just understand the industry and how to manipulate it,
and how to operate a large scale business in an efficient way to bring return for your investors and yourself and your employees and the rest, right? So it's not like I'm not against that, but I'm not against that in the cannabis industry. I'm just against that being the only piece of the cannabis industry.
I'm not going to ask you to do this today, but I just have a real general question. Like, I've had people come on the podcast and say these same things as you, but how come people don't call out these certain individuals and as kind of like gatekeepers as such, to where it's like, okay, our businesses want to thrive, but through the manipulation or through whatever type of way, they are letting other businesses thrive.
I'm not holding back on any particular person. I will tell you that I think that that's generally how things are going. In my particular case, I have been the local community has been supportive of me. They've allowed us to migrate our license. We did have 2. So in Michigan, there was industry group who got into it with the caregivers. The large industry group is no longer around. And then there was a group that said that they were the voice of the industry, the Cannabis Michigan Marijuana or Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, right? And I know that they do good things and bad things, but they are sort of the voice of the mid-size companies. Maybe they've got 5 Class C growers licensed and 3 dispensaries or whatever. And what I have found is that, in my experience, it's the mid-size who have been trying to negatively affect the little guys, not the big guys. So what I mean by that is, when we had to go from a micro business to a micro business A, the business in Niles that is on the board of this MCIA, they went to the city council and said, don't let them go to be a micro business A. There'll be more competition than we need here. But the large companies that are playing in Niles, like Calvin Johnson's company, Primitive, or Levels, which is one of the low price leaders in the state, they didn't try to keep me down.
No, not at all.
Only these middle-sized guys who act as if our customers are we're just taking them from them when they're not even offering the organic products that our customers are here to look for, right? And so, but I've never been one to really be shy about my opinions, but I also don't see any in Michigan. I don't see any particular evil entity trying, because it's more dispersed.
Because that's the message that is portrayed versus people who have a more caregiver perspective, where they feel like there are these certain mid-sized to large, even sometimes smaller entities that just want to see caregivers be extinct.
Right. Well, we've talked about that before. Obviously, I have no issue with caregivers at all. I find it interesting that that's the battle here, right? And when I first come up here, I paid a lot of attention to that battle, and it just came we're never going back to a time when there's no dispensaries, when there's no legitimate commerce, and because of that, we can't expect that that the industry is going to be totally different than any other industry in America, right? And so the nostalgia that these caregivers have about the good old days, it was good for some people and it wasn't good for other people, right? It certainly wasn't good for the patients who were sitting in the parking lot of the grocery store waiting for an hour for the weed to show up that never showed up. It was, well, I support caregivers. I don't act like every caregiver is a saint and every guy, every big corporate cannabis guy is a terrible person, right? Because if you go online and you look at the growers forums for home growers, they all recommend using all kinds of banned chemicals, especially one called Forbid for mites, right? You get mites, you go online, they say, use the Forbid. Well, Forbid is a banned chemical on the adult use side, right? But it came from the home grow side, and it's we just have to understand that there's people who want to help the patients, the partiers, and the plants that come from all the different areas of the cannabis game. And I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And then if they're assholes, they'll prove they're assholes and we can make the decision then. Right? I've spent my life trying to, being able to be amongst all different types of people. Like we talked about at the beginning, because there's weed people in every circle. And so I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and then judge them on their actions. The fights.
The fight shouldn't be suppressed. It should be, fought amongst the people who are truly trying to fight it.
Well, I think it's a distraction. It's a distraction from what we're really trying to do, which is move everything forward. And it's interesting because down in Southwest Michigan, by New Buffalo, there's also a tribal dispensary.
Right.
And that tribal dispensary I know is using caregivers to support it. And I think, I have no problem with any of that, right? Because the tribe is requiring testing protocols and that, so that, and to me, I don't think that there's like this crisis of dirty weed everywhere, and oh my God, if you smoke weed that hasn't been tested, you're going to go to end up in the hospital. I don't think that, but I also know that there's a lot of shady people in the world, and facing losing your crop makes people make a lot of
upset,
decisions, right? And so the fact that the tribe is requiring testing, but also opening up opportunities, because the money it costs to get licensed is a lot.
Expensive, yeah.
And the barrier of entry is real, so the tribe is giving other people opportunities. Up for all of it.
Right.
Up for all the different opportunities people can have. But just don't try to tell me, oh, we're going to squeeze you out because we can't.
We can, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite strain?
Well, that Blue Dream you're smoking is one that I was a daytime strain of mine that I like quite a bit.
Okay.
I have this Flavor Crystal, which is a terpene-dominant strain, terpinolene rather. You don't see a lot of terpinolene-dominant strains, so I like that. And then for me, so those two would probably be the ones that I turn to the most. Those would be the ones I turn to the most.
Tell everybody where can they find Southland, the website and social medias.
Yeah. So our website, southlandfarms.com.
Okay.
And we're located down in Niles, Michigan, which is just north of South Bend, Indiana. And you can find us on Instagram at southlandfarms_Michigan. We're always struggling. They took us down one time.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to be careful. And you can also, if you go on our website and sign up for the email, we do an email once a week that gives you all the updates on the farm, the growing club. We do concerts, free concerts outside on the grass, and other things that we're doing. Plus, the most important thing, the new harvests and the strains that are dropping each week.
Yeah. How do you feel about the whole social media ban on cannabis? It's kind of like a whole kind of ball of the social construct where you get it from the political side, you get it from your everyday person who's against cannabis. Then now where you had that free platform to post and give your thoughts, now that's being suppressed.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's so ridiculous that we can't use it, but yet THCA flower companies are using it, which is a D9 hemp.
Right.
I'm not getting into whether that should be legal or illegal. The fact is that they're able to use it.
Right.
And then now you hear about all these stories where mothers are taking their 11-year-old daughters and pimping them out on Instagram and all that, and Instagram has no problem with what they're doing to these kids. And yet, if we say the word cannabis, our stuff gets taken down immediately, and it's just a joke.
Hey, listen, I love beautiful women, but I could literally see somebody butt naked right now on Instagram, and it have 1 million likes, 1 million views, everything. If I posted a picture of me and you right now smoking a blunt,
right,
they will take it down.
I know,
and it's crazy.
And then how do we communicate with the customers? And that's what I was talking about before. Only getting half. We're not getting the benefit. Only getting the hard part of the American free enterprise system, right?
Right.
Because, so it's a big challenge. But so we're migrating more, trying to do content that we're going to be posting on YouTube.
Okay.
Now to because you got to. Right?
I think even have you ever heard of Patreon? I think Patreon is a great way to have content that is cannabis friendly and that you can post, and even if you decide to put some type of small paywall to have people to have access to that. So that's something that I know that we're starting to integrate too, because even on YouTube it's the same thing where if you on cannabis, they'll age restricted, and if you get so many they may do a strike on your channel. I've kind of always just taken all right, you got to be 18 to watch the video anyway. So I kind of bystep that. But YouTube, all the social medias are kind of anti-cannabis.
Well, hopefully it will be changing soon.
Right, definitely. Well, Mike, you were a great guest. I'm extremely grateful that you came and gave your perspective on cannabis from a business owner standpoint, from being a long-time user, and now being a businessman, cultivator, and a man of cannabis. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so
for coming on.
My pleasure.
We're gonna give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Shout out to the Lit Cup. We're doing a giveaway for the Lit Cup. The Lit Cup is a cup where you can indulge in your favorite drink, and on the bottom it has a small bong where you can smoke out of the bottom. Now this is the sweet part. Get us to 5,000 followers on Instagram and 4,000 on YouTube. We're gonna do a large giveaway where your favorite podcast will come and deliver it to you, and you can, possibly get a little bit more as far as the giveaway. I want to give a shout out to Mixing with Love Bakery. We're bringing back our signature drink. It's mixed, twisted, with a lot of different love and a lot of different ingredients. This has been Smoke Some Podcast, The Visionary Mind, episode 34. We out.